Alana Parkinson. Wow, she is a teacher and a healer and a coach and a meditation teacher. She's amazing, and she's passionate about using our most difficult circumstances to create massive growth in our lives. She does this for all of her clients and students by using potent yet simple tools and revamping one's mindset. And you're going to totally tap into that in today's interview. You're going to see how she invites people to come into the dark places, but then really appreciate all the bounty that life is giving us, even when we're devastated over breakups.
Yeah, she really brings so much to the table around revamping or reimagining what's possible inside of the darkness, inside of those seemingly losses and grief tunnels that we go through in love and in romance and in intimacy. So tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Alana Parkinson.
That's right, baby.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagine Podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Alana, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here with you both. I adore you both, so this is just such a pleasure.
Alana has interviewed both of us for her previous summits, and so we were like, oh, we must have Alana because she's just such a sparkling gem and jewel and has such great perspective on, conscious uncoupling and what it means to be in relationship. And, she's been through some dark night of the souls herself. We've connected very personally about that. And so she knows a lot. So we're really thrilled that you're here, Alana.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, one of the things that really sparked for me when I met you and just thought your niche is really interesting regarding, how to find that mojo as you've transitioned out of a marriage and this whole process of divorce. And what it reminded me of is watching both my parents through their divorce. And, my mom, who grew up as a good Catholic girl and with 4 other siblings. She comes from a family of 4 siblings. She's the middle child. And so she's always had this feeling of being the black sheep. And of course, she's the one that had the divorce and carries this big story around that. And I always wanted to unburden her from that and take that shame away. And so I'm just kind of curious, like in this day and age, this was decades ago. What are you seeing in the way of shame and the marriages ending? What's that look like?
I think a lot of women specifically, I work more with women than men, really feel that they're not good enough. And I think that's it, is that virtually all of us have that wound deep down inside, and it shows up in many different ways. And that one is touched on very deeply when we go through that process of divorce because or breakup, it doesn't necessarily have to be divorce.
Sure.
But when we go through that process, we had this person beside us that validated that we were good enough, right? It was like, well, they're choosing to be with me, so therefore I'm good enough. And when you go through that breakdown, even if it's you deciding to leave, and I've been in that situation, you still are there now and you're kind of floating around in the world. And you don't have that grounding anymore that you did through your marriage. You're now standing on your own 2 feet, especially if, in my case, you got into that relationship at a relatively young age, right? As you were kind of coming into adulthood, that you then got into that relationship, then stepped into marriage and did all the things that you're supposed to do, right? You checked all the boxes, you got married, you bought the house, you had the kids, you got the career, you have your 2 dogs and whatever. And then all of a sudden that all falls apart. And so by society's standards, you failed, right? Like you're not checking those boxes anymore. What have you done wrong? And it's a very difficult process because I think a lot of us, as we're going through it, that marriage is our foundation, right? That marriage is our stability. That marriage is how we define ourselves, especially if we have a family and all of that, right? Like this is our life. And then so to have that fall apart and to fail can really knock someone into that shame spiral, right? Where it's embarrassing, it's horrifying, it's you just want to go inside, and there's no and as I was going through the Get Your Mojo Back Summit and talking to all of the different speakers like you ladies, what really came through is that it's not celebrated, and it really should be something that is celebrated, because it's very much, it's like a new coming of age, right? It's really being able to step into yourself and say, I don't need to be defined by this, right? I don't need to be defined by this anymore. I want something more. What I had created maybe from my 20s or even my early 30s isn't really me. It was checking all those boxes that were defined by other people, but it wasn't checking my boxes, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't doing me.
It's such a rite of passage into becoming your most authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen in your work with people, do the divorces, are they often happening more when people are getting married younger, in their 20s and 30s? Like, what if people are getting married a little bit later in life, in their 40s and 50s, a little bit more self-knowing going on at that age, hopefully?
And there's both, right? I think there's a shift now in the younger generations. And I think we even went through that, right? Like where, and I live here in Mexico, and there's kids getting married at 16, right? So it's all dependent on society and what the norms are. But I think, as I was going through, and I finished my university, I finished my degree and went and did my master's. And that was really when I started doing, like, that's when we got married. And that's when we, after that had the kids and stuff. So I think all of that is shifting later. And so I think there's more consciousness, right? As you're coming into it from that older age, that more mature self. But really in your 20s, really, like, you think you have all the answers, right? And there's so much growth, like there's just constantly growth in life.
Well,
I was like this
actually...
to marriage in my 20s.
I was actually more open to it in my 20s, and I was not open to it in my 30s. But your brain is still developing until you're 25 years old. Technically, you're still an adolescent. Like, adolescence goes from 12 to 25. Mm-hmm. And so, and that is all dependent on what's happening with the brain and coming into full development. And my parents got married when they were 19 and 20. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure my grandparents got married around the same age. Mm-hmm. And I think what kind of created a bigger divide, like when I imagine what my mom was wrestling with, it was all her parents' generation. Mm-hmm. They stayed together. There mm-hmm. weren't as many divorces. So now you have this next generation where there's more freedom to go, I'm not happy. I'm not going to stay in this relationship. This isn't working. We're both miserable. Our kids are miserable. Like, something's got to give. And I think that's an interesting thing that really starts to happen in breaking up, is the comparison that we do to ourselves and other. Mm-hmm. I remember my first relationship that was a long-term relationship breaking up, and I was devastated over the dream didn't come true. Mm-hmm. Our love was so connected to this mutual dream, and we're not going to see that to the finish line, and having to sort of make peace with that. Yeah. How do you see the people, the women that you coach, where are they at in the comparison game?
I think we do this. I don't think it really matters if we're going through divorce, or we're going through a healing crisis, or we're going through some a career growth, or right. We're constantly in that state of comparing ourselves with others, mm-hmm. right? And we never think that we're where we're supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is that it's the most beautiful invitation, no matter what it is that you're going through, to go inward and heal that aspect of yourself, right? I think we're so programmed to want to put a lid on it and just like push it down and be like, okay, nope, that's not supposed to be happening. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be feeling this. I'm supposed to be moving onwards, right? And not allowing yourself to grieve, especially if you're the one that ended it, right? If you're like, I'm the one that ended the relationship,
I shouldn't feel shame and loss and sadness and anger. I mean, grief is really this huge umbrella term. There's so many emotions inside of grief.
Totally. Yeah. And so really, whatever it is that you're experiencing is when you're, and this is why I work with women in this stage, because it is like the most potent time for massive growth. It is so ripe, because all of those insecurities are right on the surface, right? Like as you go through, right, you can connect into the grief, regardless of who ended it. You can connect into the grief. You can connect into the shame. You can connect into what are other people thinking of me? You can connect into failure. You can connect into I'm too old, too fat, too ugly, too stupid, not interesting, but right? Like all of those things that are going to be churned up through this process, you can dive right into them and you can connect to them so deeply, so intensely. And when you can do that and you have the tools, you have the ability to really be in that space and shift them, when you come out the other side, all of that stuff is no longer defining your life, right? You're no longer getting into a relationship because you don't feel good enough and you need somebody to stand there beside you and say that I am good enough. Look, I have this wonderful mate beside me, right? You don't need somebody there to make you feel strong and stable, right? You now have the ability to do this for yourself. So then you can consciously make these choices going forward. You can consciously follow your heart and create a life that you love on the other side of this, rather than one that you compare to other people, right? That you're saying, oh, well, what does this person have? Or what should I have? Or what does society say I should have? Or what do my parents think I should have? You know, I had that as well. All of that, it just doesn't matter anymore. You can still be aware of it. You're conscious of it, but it's not dictating the choices that you make.
I bet a lot of people struggle with like, okay, I'm the one that broke up, but they're dating so much quicker than I am. Like they found their next person and I haven't.
That is a hard one.
Yeah. Like, does that feeling of pressure of like having to get back in the romantic game, you know, something that they wrestle with timing? Like do you know when you want to get back in?
You know what's really interesting, and this is just kind of an aside here, but it's all tied into this as well, is that the women that come to me now are really much more focused on doing the inner work. Like they know that the work is inside of them before they step into that next relationship. Yeah, and so awesome. wherever they're at, that whether they're leaving a relationship, getting ready to leave a relationship, whether they're not happy in it and not sure what to do, whether they're ready and they want that next relationship, they're all across the board knowing that they really, that alignment comes from within. And then once you have that, then you naturally attract this incredible mate to you and all of the other stuff. Like it's like a cherry on top of loving your life, right?
Right.
It's just one aspect of an amazing life. And so but it comes from within. It comes from within. And that's really the magic here, is that you can really create that unique essence.
Yeah. Do women ever come to you and they're like, okay, I know I need to leave my husband and I'm really scared to do it. And I know I need to do all this self-work and I know it's going to be a can of worms. And how long do you think it's going to take me? Do they ever ask you that question?
Right. Surprisingly, actually, really they don't. But it is that, right? I mean, I think we just want the end, right? We want the end result, right? We're in a miserable relationship and we want the happy ending.
Yeah.
Right.
And we want to know how long am I going to have to suffer through this
going to take,
growth
Alana?
spurt, right?
So what I can tell you from my own experience, I mean, everybody has their own experience, but if you really commit to diving into it, like really go into it, right? I'm not talking about distracting yourself, not to say that you don't do your Netflix binges or, you know, go out with friends and, you know, drink your sorrows away, but that really you like daily are committing to shifting what it is that you're experiencing. When I split up with, we're actually back together, but we split up for like 8 weeks ish, a couple of years ago with my partner. And I had to go into it. I really had to go into all of that stuff, right? It was corners. Like, this is all of it. And it was, I'm not going to say it was easy, right? It was hard. There were days where it was like 4 hours of just soothing myself and being in that space. I broke out in a rash on my neck. Like, I mean, it was intense. I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but with each time that I did it, I found more of my center. And to the point where it was like, I didn't have to do it daily anymore. Like I could have days where I just naturally felt good. And I remember 6 weeks later, so it was 6 weeks, waking up one morning and just being like, I fucking love my life. Like it is amazing. I am so happy in my bed on my own. The sun is shining into my room. I have an amazing client call later. Like I was just like this, and I had gone to a ceremony the night before, and like, I was just like, this is amazing. And then that morning I had an email from my ex, we're now back together, saying, I totally messed up. Like I need to do the work. I get it. Right. So it was like, even in that, in getting to your center, it opens up all kinds of different possibilities. It allows you to be in that space where the universe is really supporting you to bring you whatever it is that's in alignment with you, right? You're not pushing it away anymore. And I think I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of being in that space of a breakup or a divorce, is that your foundation has been blown to smithereens, right? Like it's gone.
Shattered.
And so you're just like in this space of just like of reeling. But in that space of reeling, you are so much more open to whatever comes your way. Like you don't have all of that structure built up around you that was keeping you safe and stable. Mm-hmm. It's not there anymore. And so you're able to just receive and be in more of this state of flow and possibility. And like, I don't know what's coming next, right? But I feel like I'm standing on the edge of the abyss and like, I have no idea what's in front of me, but it's like and especially when you're in that space of alignment, that it's like this most magical adventure, because you're truly open to it. And the universe is able to bring you everything that you need to support you on that journey. And I mean, I saw it again and again and again in my own process. I see it with my clients as well. Like it's just incredible what unfolds when you're in that space.
I love what you're speaking to as well, around like you come closer to your core, you come back home to your essence, you find yourself through those hard times, through those moments of feeling shattered and having the darkest thoughts that you may have ever had before.
All that uncertainty you feel. Yeah.
And that builds up such a place inside of her where you can stand on the edge of that abyss and not feel so afraid, but feel more curious, and I think that curiosity around, I don't know what's coming next. And I don't know where this path is going to lead me, but I'm curious to find out. And I have some excitement and I have some fear too. Like, and it's okay to have some fear, especially if you have been really, really shattered. I think there's a healthy level of fear that comes with stepping into whatever is next for you.
Well, and isn't there like clarity that gets revealed regarding where you're headed, what you need, what you want? It's like there's an inquiry that finally has some space to be nourished and explored, that goes, what do I want? What's important to me now? Who am I now at this stage in my life? And with what it's important to me, what is important to me, and what will I never put up with again? And what do I want different next time? And what's the kind of love that I'm going to say yes to versus the kind of love that I'm going to say no to, and starting to have some more clarity about what your soul truly is seeking. Right? Yeah. Is that something I imagine gets to be really looked at? There's like more space for that to be explored.
And the beautiful thing that comes from that too is that it naturally evolves because you begin treating yourself in that way, right? Is that it shifts because you're now doing that for yourself. And when you do that for yourself, then you invite others to do that for you as well. Right. And so when you're in that space of like, I need this person to do this for me, I need this person to make me feel this way, then you're dependent on these things outside of you. And it's because you're not doing that for yourself, right? It's because you feel like that's missing from what you have going on. So when you get into this space of really healing those wounds, then you do it for yourself, and you're not looking for somebody to fill your holes, right? You're not looking for somebody to come in and make you whole or make you complete, right? Like Jerry Maguire, it's, you are complete. And so then you can attract somebody who's also complete. And so rather than coming together as this wobbly ball, right, that's like dependent on each other and I mean, to depend on somebody else to do exactly what you need at all times is insanity, right? Is then you're in this wobbly relationship, and there's ups and there's downs and there's all these things. And not to say that there isn't in a stable relationship as well, but it comes from more of a growth period, right? Like it's an exponential thing that's going on where you're supporting each other in your growth rather than like just trying to find center again, right? Where you're just trying to find, heal that wobble.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel, go ahead, Leah.
I was just going to bring up self-worth, right? Because it seems like this is part of what you might be speaking to is when we start to do that inner work and kind of heal those things and see our worth and see our beauty and see our, our brilliance and this thing that makes us us, our essence, we get to be in greater touch with that. And that kind of inquiry, when we start to own that, it changes how people look at us. It changes the field of our attractiveness. And when we can be uncompromising with that part of our beautiful soul, then suddenly we upgrade, right? Like there's an up leveling that happens in who you start to attract into your life, and that could be a new job, that could be friendships, that could be travel, that could be a partners, plural. I mean, all sorts of things I think are possible when we really get to that part of that most painful place inside, those deeper, darker corners we don't want anyone to see, that level of self-doubt. When we face that in the mirror, I think a lot of things transform and the universe responds, right?
It does. It absolutely does. And exactly all of those ways. And it's whatever brings you in the door, right? It's whatever brings you in the door. It can be a relationship. It can be your health. It can be wanting to make more money. It can be wanting to find your purpose. It can be whatever it is, right? The journey is inward. It's inward. The answer is the same, is that you get to go in and heal those aspects of yourself that feel like you're not good enough. Maybe you have, like, if you really dive into it, you have this vision of who you want to be with, right? And you're like, this is who I want to be with. And then you have all these voices that are like, you're not good enough. They'll never like you. You're not fun enough to talk to. You never go out. Your body isn't perfect anymore. Or maybe it never was. You have wrinkles now. You have whatever, right? All this stuff. And then you just start going into this kind of a settling mode. Whereas when you're really in that space, that like vibrant space, it is so attractive. And I know that absolutely everyone listening can think of somebody that maybe on first blush, when they first met them, they were like, meh. And as they got to know them, they were just like, wow, yes, you are stunning. Like there's just this, like, I just want to spend more time with you. And it doesn't have to be like a romantic or sexual relationship. There's people that just have that energy that are just like, yes, this feels amazing, right? It's that you get to tap into for yourself and start attracting things. And I was talking to somebody and they were like, well, how do I meet people? And they're like, maybe I should go online. And I'm not to knock online dating or anything like that, but from my perspective, like, you can meet people anywhere. If you leave your house, I mean, God, if you order delivery, like not that you necessarily want to date the delivery guy, but like you can, when you're in that radiant space, you can attract somebody in your sweats at the supermarket, right? Like, I mean, you don't need to go out and actively be searching for somebody. It naturally will come to you. It will come to you. And I mean, I think we can all relate to this. For me, I was reflecting on this, a few months ago, but in high school, and I'd be like, okay, I want a boyfriend. I'm ready for a boyfriend. I want a boyfriend. Where's my boyfriend? And there's no boyfriend. No boyfriend to be found, right? And then I just go back to having a good time with my friends, and we're going out and we're doing this and we're doing that, and boyfriend, right? Magically manifest boyfriend, because I am enjoying life. I am not focusing on what I don't have. I'm enjoying what I do have, right? And from that space, you're so attractive. You are so vibrant and so magnetic, and people just want to be with you.
I feel like I have a lot of, not a lot, but a few clients who the story kind of it repeats itself. It's like another one bites the dust. But I'm doing so much work on myself. I'm doing all the things I need to be doing, and and I've been working on this for years, and I'm still not magnetizing, But what advice would you have for women who are in that loop?
Go into your biggest fears. I would say find something that you are like, never. I will never do that, and go do it. And find your center in that, because that is going to create a whole new level of growth, a whole new level of expansion. And it's going to open up things that you didn't even know were lurking there, right? It's when we're in that space of stagnant, right? And I was actually just writing about this yesterday, but we need to go in both directions. So there's the inner work, absolutely inner work, right? But we also need to expand. We also need to move forward. So we need to heal the roots, but we also need to expand the branches and the leaves and all that stuff as a tree, right? We need to be balanced, as above, so below. We need to make sure we're going in both directions. And so I feel like a lot of healing, a lot of people that do like a lot of that work, right? They'll go in one direction or the other, but they don't necessarily go in both. And so when you can start moving forward and find like, I'm trying to think of some things that I started doing. One was singing, right? Like I love to sing. I would sing in my car all the time. And my boyfriend, he's a singer, songwriter and everything. He's like, come sing with me. And I was like, no, like that is never going to happen. And 6 months later, boom, I was singing on stage. I was singing on stage with him, and I love it. I love it. But there was a process to get to that point, right? Like I had to go through all of those fears and all of those, like, I'm not good enough and I can't put myself on stage and what will people think? And I don't know what to do with my hands and like all that stuff, right? And so you get to go through those things when you start pushing yourself outside of your boundaries. Take a dance class, take, I don't know, like something that you've never done before, something that you've always wanted to do. Learn a new language. God, that one's a huge one, right? Because you want to be perfect. You want to do everything perfectly. Go to a tantra course, right? Like do something that is just so outside of your comfort zone. Push yourself, do it, dive in, feel all the discomfort, feel all of that wobbliness, because it's going to happen. You're going to feel wobbly because you're pushing beyond your boundaries. You're pushing beyond what feels safe and secure right now. And you're going to expand from that. And you'll see, it's like just magic opens up.
So in doing that, in doing whatever kind of is the biggest fear and just facing it and stepping up to the plate and doing it, even if it doesn't, it doesn't go smoothly or you don't feel full of grace as you're doing whatever it is, you're going to like see what you're capable of. Like, wow, you're capable of stepping up to that fear. And then you do it again. And it's like, oh, it's a little bit more graceful the second time, and it's, you become
self-trust, right?
It's becoming
like being brave and doing hard things. And then you see how resilient you are.
Totally.
And then something flourishes, from within that goes, wow. Okay. So you may have the same answer to this question as this last one. So I've got a couple girlfriends who've been single for 10 plus or more years, right? Middling age. Mm-hmm. And these are dynamic, amazing women who do scary shit all the time. They face their stuff. They've been doing inner work. They're teachers in their own right. Mm-hmm. They've melted so many hard places inside, and not to say there isn't more to go, but like, in so many ways, they have their shit together. And you just kind of go, how is it possible? Are they living in the wrong town? Is it that they need to move out of this state? Are there just not enough, appropriate people to date? Why do they keep on getting misses? And then there's a resigned stages that they're always kind of coming in and out of just going, it may not happen. I've been on my knees praying for this and it's just not happening. So I'm fine. I'm good. I can do this by myself. Would I like it to happen? Yes, but it's not happening. So now what? I mean, do you get clients like that who, for all intents and purposes, you're just kind of going, what is it, universe? Come on, get your act together for these women. And
yes, absolutely. I still say the work is on the inside. And I think that even if you are living in the wrong place or the wrong whatever, right? Like say things like that need to happen, that if you're truly in a place of surrender, and I think this is where people struggle the most, is to really follow that guidance, to really release those beliefs and release the structure that you have right now, right? And allow it to turn into something else. And I can say that, with my own experiences, we have things that we don't even realize that we are clinging to for dear life. Like we have things that we are just, again, I do this all the time. I live and breathe this stuff. And I just went
Yeah.
through this like 3 weeks ago, right? Where I found something that I was like, oh, you want to see me rigid? This is me rigid. Like, I'm not letting go of this one. Right. And so as we grow, as we expand, we bump up against these different aspects, and the journey is different for everybody. Like, I have no doubt that those women have all of their shit together, or maybe men as well have all of their shit together. But at the same time, there is more. And when they get to that point, they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's what it was. Right. I mean, and again, not knowing them, I can't really speak more to it than that. But as you release those beliefs, as you release those fears, as you release those old, I don't even want to say beliefs, but it's like structure that we've created and that we've grown up with, that we don't even realize that we have, that's when things begin to unfold. And again, that's where like being in that space of the breakup or of the divorce or whatever really breaks a lot of that stuff down and allows us to see what's really there, what serves us, what doesn't serve us. So yeah, I mean, for those women, I know for me, like when I was going through my healing journey, I was surrounded by people that didn't get me. Like, I was awakening in the middle of North Carolina, and like nobody got me. And I was like, I just found this out today. And I just found, and people were like, I do not want to hear about that. Like, I don't want to hear about what you're going through. Like, that is just scaring the shit out of me. And so time lapsed, right? There was a couple of years, and then all of a sudden we were living in Costa Rica, and I was surrounded by people that got me, people that were like way beyond where I was at. And I was just like, this is amazing. And then coming here, living in Mexico now, same thing. Like, I'm surrounded by this community, and I just, I'm still renting here, and I found a house in this other community that is like all these people. Like the landlord is a meditation expert. His partner she does theta healing, and I hadn't even said what I do or who I am or anything like that. And we get there, and he's like, oh, this person does their work, and this person does their work, and this person does their work. And I'm like, of course, this is my community. This is where I would naturally have attracted that next place. So now I've been here 7 years. I didn't immediately fall into that place. Right. And I have an amazing community. So like, as we grow and as we evolve and as we kind of allow the universe to guide us on our journey, then those things start to fall into place. It may be that those women or those men have certain things they need to accomplish first that they're not even conscious of yet, and that there's certain areas they need to get to in their life, in other areas, or certain awareness before they're ready for that partnership, or before they're ready to match with that true expansive match.
What questions would you as a coach bring to the table to help someone who's not seeing what it is that they need to see in order to have the next transcendent breakthrough within themselves?
So that is, I can't say that there's a specific question that I would ask, because I also do healing work. So it's really a matter of tapping into that person's energy and seeing what's blocked. And so everybody's different. Everyone has a different thing going on depending on the day, right? I mean, you wake up in the morning and you may have certain things that are triggered, and then the next day you don't have those things triggered, right? So, and this is where the healing journey goes, is that really you need to be in a space of that awareness and that triggering before you can do the healing, right? You can't heal something that you're not aware of,
well,
right?
You said something really powerful. It was like, what are you afraid of? I think of like, if you could have it all your way, what would it look like?
Well, and and you can start from there. Absolutely. You can start from there. But I'd say even that, we're not even aware what our biggest fears are, right? Until we're literally facing them, we're not even necessarily going to acknowledge them. I had something that came up that if someone had asked me if I had any fears, I would have been like, no, I don't have any. And I have a bajillion that I'm not even aware of, right? So it's hard to start from that place.
That's maybe the question is that, Willow has this brilliant practice and exercise that she leads people through regarding your deepest heart's desire. Maybe it's just like sometimes connecting to like, what's your really deepest heart's desire? What's that thing that's going to open you, or where do you feel tight, and what would it be like if it was open?
Yeah.
Who would you be? How would you treat yourself?
And that's even a journey in and of itself, right? I mean, that's one of the areas that we absolutely go into, is starting to create that vision of what you want to create in your life. right? And then, and it's not gonna, you're gonna sit down to write it out and you'll be like, I don't know. What do you want in a relationship? I don't know. Somebody that's
nice to me.
yeah. Right. Like, I mean,
Thinks
you're
I'm
like,
hot.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Good
Great
sex.
sex. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's it. Right. And then, but as you open up that question, you invite the answers to come in as well. And you start to notice your friend's relationship and you're like, oh, I love that. I want that. Right. And then you see something and you're like, okay, no, definitely don't want that. And so, but you're framing it right on what you do want. So it's like, okay, don't want that. Instead of that, I would like this. Right. And so you're bit by bit creating this vision. And then comes that next step. Why don't I already have this? Why am I not already living this vision, right? What are my beliefs around this and why I'm not already there? Because that's the only reason that you don't already have it, right? That your vision, if you have that desire, then that's what your heart is calling for, right? Assuming that it's not totally ego driven, that your heart is really calling for something, that's why you're not already there. So if you have, this is what I want, and this is where I'm at, all of this are those beliefs and the traumas and all of that jazz that are going on inside of you that are preventing you from being in that space, from really truly being in alignment with that. And so that's where you get to start when you have this and you know where you're at, right? And you can say, these are all the beliefs that I have and this is where I want to go. Then you can start working through all of that and get closer and closer and have new ones open up, right? You may only be aware of these ones right here. And as you move closer, you're like, oh gosh, there's a whole bunch there too, right? And so as you move closer and closer, that it becomes more and more obvious.
Opens and it's like new doors open. You know, I've been part of this Dream Weavers group for almost 3 years, and it's all about like, you know, like let's weave our dreams together. Let's share our dreams and witness each other in making those dreams a reality. And so I think it could be so valuable for like just a small group of women, get together with a few of your girlfriends who are kind of in the same boat. Like, I've been doing all this work, still hasn't happened, da, 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 da. It's like, okay, start a little chat between 3 or 4 of you and start to like really write out, like, what is like wave that magic wand. What does it look like? Share it with each other and be witnessed in it. I think one of the biggest things that we want as human beings is to be acknowledged, to be seen, to be witnessed. I mean, that's what you were speaking to, Alana, where you're like, these people didn't see me. It wasn't until I moved to Costa Rica and Mexico that I found people who could see me. And I think that's also one of the things that really scares people about letting go of relationship is like, oh, our friend group, you know, I'm going to lose these people. I'm going to lose these friends. Some people are like, God bless, I'll let go. Other, family, that kind of thing. And it's an opportunity, the evolution and the growth that happens through that heartbreak tunnel or that loss or that grief tunnel is what brings you those people who do see you at such a deep and powerful level.
Don't you have to first see yourself? Like, isn't there like a recognition to go, why am I so invisible? Why am I so invisible? And it's like, well, first you gotta see you.
That's what you work out in that tunnel.
Right. And then, right. And so I'm kind of listening to the two of you even. It almost seems like the space between those two places, it seems like what you're really tackling is like all the judgments we have that's in our way to, you know, having this thing that we see ourselves living. We can see the vision. We can see our radiant future self. We can connect to that wisdom that's 5 years from now. And so we wrestle with the judgments. Is that what it is? Yeah.
And there's a, you know, as you're going through this process, it's unraveling bit by bit. So you said, well, we have to see ourselves first, right? And I've even said that as well. And I think this is a really important part because this is where people think like, well, I just need to do this one thing, right? And then I'm done, right? And then everything is just going to open up and I'm done, right? And it's like, it's an evolutionary journey. So yes, you start to see yourself more and then people start to see you more. And then you start to see yourself more and people start to see you even more. And so it is like, it's not an all or nothing thing. Right. The only one, and I was reflecting on this the other day too, is that the one that really is, it's not all or nothing, but it can really slow things down, is the ability to surrender, is the ability to release that control. And which is like, for
Huge.
me, I was like huge control freak. Like that was my thing. And it's, again, it's been a journey. It's been a real journey. But as I've been able to release control and as I've been able to let go, it really does open up the natural unfolding of things. And that's where things can really start to take off, is when you get into a habit of being like, okay, that scares me immensely. Like, I don't want to let go of control of that, because if I let go of control of that, there's my stability gone. Right. And so you do that, you let it go, and then you find that stability inside of you. And you let it go and you find that stability inside of you. And this is the process, is creating that inner stability, that inner grounding, and then being able to move forward from this new centered space where you're not dependent on these things outside of you to feel safe and stable. Right. And we have a bajillion of them that we're not even aware of. Right. But as you come up against them, and as you start seeing, like, I'm very dependent on living in this house, I'm very dependent on staying in this city, I'm very dependent on staying in this friend group, I'm very dependent on staying in this relationship, I'm very dependent on whatever. Right. Like, as you become aware of that these are the things that you are inviting into your life, some of them are providing huge amounts of safety and security so that you can thrive. And some of them are holding you back. Right. And so when you can start letting those go and then get into that shaky space and find your center again, then that is like thriving through anything. I mean, you can take on anything.
I love this. It's, it's making me think of birth as like a metaphor, right? When you, as a woman, you get pregnant, you go through the 9 months, you grow, you expand, you evolve, and then it's time to deliver, and you go through that, like,
that contraction,
that whole
series
experience,
of
and the ring of fire, and then you're a mother. It's like you go from being a maid into a mother, and all of that work that you do those 9 months, including the labor and delivery itself, is prepping you for that motherhood, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing when you're going through this breakup or this loss, this divorce. You're going through a journey, a rebirthing of yourself, so that when the next relationship does come in, you're prepared for it, because the work doesn't stop once that next it's not like you get the one, you get the dream partner and you're done. It keeps going, but now you have more of that stability in place inside of you, and whatever your partner does or doesn't do that triggers you or doesn't trigger you, you can come home to your essence and your source, your own stability.
That's it. And I use that all the time, that birthing canal. Like, when you're going through the breakup, that is the birthing canal. Like, you're in that really constrictive, uncomfortable, everything feels squishy and horrible and tight and dark and
I don't
scary.
know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and I don't know what's on the other side. And I don't know. And then you come out the other side and it's like, oh, this is amazing out here. Like, wow, I love it. Like,
it feels
life
so
is good, right?
to get to the other side.
Right?
Oh my God. But you got to do the work.
You got to do the work. You got to do the
Butterfly
work.
analogy is a good one too.
It is.
Getting into that chrysalis state, like breaking down from a caterpillar to a liquid, like really talk about surrender, talk about letting go of everything you've ever known, and now you're just a liquid, and then all of a sudden you're a butterfly and you're flying high, so it's such an incredible process. It's so transformative.
That's the other piece too, is like, as you go through these difficult stages, right, that you're learning the tools, exactly what you said, for motherhood, right? You're learning the tools to become a mother. You're learning the tools as you come through that breakup, as you come through that divorce, as you come through whatever it is, that challenge that you're going through. You now have tools, you now have the confidence in you that it's not quite as scary. And you'll start to find that you're facing things that would have had you running for the hills before. Like, you would have been like, absolutely not. I'm done. Like, I'm off the planet. Forget it. Right? And you're like, okay, yeah, we can do this. It's like throwing me for a loop here, but let's go. We can do this. Right. And then you look back and you're like, how did I get through that? Because you do have the tools and you do have the confidence and you do have that inner stability to do these things that you couldn't have done a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Right. And so you really get to watch yourself evolve. And when you have those tools, it becomes a playground, right? Like, even when you're in those dark nights of the soul and you're going through these difficult moments, it's not so scary because you know that there's massive expansion on the other side. It's like after going through the birthing canal so many times, you're like, okay, I've done this. I know that there's like a huge amount of light on the other side, and I'm going to feel like super free, and I'm going to have like all these new experiences, right? So you're kind of, I mean, I'm not going to say kind of, you're excited. There's a part of you that's like, let's do it. This is going to be good because this one really sucks right now.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's important to say too, because I just went through the biggest fucking heartbreak of my life, right? So the biggest grief portal that I've ever been through. And it was shattering and it was painful. And yes, I had many, many, many moments where I was like in full trust and in full faith that I would come through and that I would get to the other side. So there were moments where my mom would be like, I think you're depressed. Maybe you need to go on an antidepressant. And I was like, I'm in depression, but I'm not depressed because I know it's going to end. Like, yes. I know I'm going to get through this. And I lost my train of thought, but something about like, oh, when you're in that dark night of the soul, when you're deep in that process and you're in that pain, I think it's so crucial for everyone who's surrounding and supporting to just be like, I see that you're in pain, and not be like, oh, don't worry, you're going to get through it. Because people kept saying to me, oh, there's something better around the corner. And sure enough, there is. And I'm standing and looking at it now. And I knew that somewhere deep inside, but it was not helping me to hear that in that moment.
Right.
No. I found when I went through mine, I was in that space of deep surrender. And again, doing this work daily and having, moments where it was just the same thing, like just crushing. And it was so fascinating because I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend, because my kids would be half the time with their dad and half the time with me. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. And there was part of me that was panicked. And like, either I would be in a space where I couldn't do anything and I needed to do the work for myself, or something would show up at the last minute. I remember one morning, it was a Sunday morning, and I was like, I had had a really intense Saturday. And I was like, okay, you know what, universe? I think I'm ready to see people today, but very specific people, like not anybody, right? Very specific people. If something happens, I think I could do that today. And I kid you not, in like 15, 20 minutes, I had a call. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I had a friend call me and he's like, hey, we have some friends visiting us and she needs to do an online cacao ceremony and our internet's really bad. Is it okay if we come use your office? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, well, we're going to bring like everybody and we'll bring the kids and stuff and we can just hang out. I was like, all right. And so they came over and so this woman that was doing the cacao ceremony up in my office up here, and we were downstairs and he brought cacao. And so we had this beautiful cacao ceremony, like impromptu cacao ceremony. And he had just lost his wife. I'd never met him before. He had just lost his wife, and he does like some crazy, it's like, I can't remember what it's called, but some kind of astrological work, right? So we were talking about like, just like super crazy concepts and talking about like ends of relationships and moving onward and the process of grieving and all of this stuff. And then we went and we spent the afternoon in some thermal pools. And then that night we went and did like some drumming and some chanting and stuff like that at their house, and, with some copal and all this stuff. And I was like, I got home that night and I was like, I couldn't have planned that. Like I could not have planned that and had it turn out so well. It was the most soul nourishing day, right? And it was just like event after event like that would unfold in my life right when I needed it. If I was in a space and I was doing deep healing and I was like, I have a client call in 15 minutes, and I'm like a snotty mess, right? Like I'm like, oh my God, what am I? And they would cancel. And like it was things like that. It was just like, this is amazing. Like I feel so supported on so many levels right now. And everything was just unfolding in this most perfectly beautiful way. So it's really which is one of the, again, it's so hard to be in that space, but it is so beautiful when you can just really, truly allow yourself to be in that space and feel the feelings and go through the grief and then come out the other side.
I think we're coming back to, an important point that you made earlier, and that I think watching Willow go through her process, one of the things that she's so brilliant at is like being there for herself and feeling the feelings and like being in the present moment of whatever is arising. And I felt around her like she knew this feeling wasn't gonna last forever, that it was just in the now, in the ism of this moment. What I'm feeling is sad, or what I'm feeling is, hopeless, or what I'm feeling is well, what about the future? Is everything going to be okay? Because I don't feel okay right now. I feel really sad. And just like being with the sadness or being with the loneliness, like whatever that is, she didn't shy away from it. She went right into the center of the truth of what she was feeling in the moment. And it was interesting, Willow, because it wasn't like, you're sitting with a friend and it's a poor me, pity me, hopeless, endless puddle.
But such a drain, those friendships.
Right. That can take a lot. It's a scary place to find yourself in.
Yeah.
But you weren't rushing the process either. You weren't trying to be anywhere other than where you were at. And it felt like you had enough self-love and practice surrender to just walk yourself home. It was like you kept walking yourself through every emotion, and you weren't saving it for later, which I think is such the habit that we want to do. I'll feel that later. Totally. I don't have time. Let me distract myself with 1,000 different things so I don't have to actually live in the pain body or the emotional body.
Yeah.
And that's not the fastest way to process, right? I mean, if you can just go to the center of it, you don't have to stay there as long.
And you can feel it. I mean, I remember, because I was very much in like the tools when I went through this. I was like, okay, well, I have my process and I have my things that I do. And so I'm just going to keep doing these things, right? I'm going to do these things and I'm going to do these things. And okay, these things they're like, I still don't feel great. Like after doing these things, why don't I feel great? And I remember there was one day where it was like, something happened. I don't even remember what it was, but it triggered me. And I dropped my kids off with their dad. And he was trying to be nurturing and all supportive and everything. And I was just like, I just want to go home. Like, I just need some time to myself. And so I eventually got home and I was like, okay, I think I need to do a session, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And it was like, I just need to sit and just feel it. Right. And it was like, where do I feel it? And it was like, boom, in my third chakra, like immediately in my third chakra. As soon as I felt it, boom, here come the tears. Right. And it was literally 30 seconds of tears. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. But had I not done that, I mean, I was carrying that for hours and hours and hours, right? Like, so when you're in that space, you think that I'll feel that later. You're feeling it now. You're just not feeling the full effects of it now, right? And so when you can go into that space and just feel it, because that is the processing, right? Is just feeling it. Then yeah, you can forward.
Yeah. It alchemizes quickly if you really go into it and notice where it's at in your body and all of that. And I think that was one of the, I mean, I've been teaching this shit and practicing this shit for over 20 years, but like through this particular birth canal, I got to such a deeper level with the practice, with the surrender, with the trust, with the isness. Like I lost faith in myself for a second there. Got emotion just talking about it, and so having that deeper layer and foundation of faith and trust in the universe, and being able to surrender and being with what is, and learning how to alchemize emotion at such a pristine level. So, but now I got to just go into what's happening now. It's like, okay, I could alchemize the grief and the sadness and the anger and the fear.
What do you mean by that, Willow? For people who don't understand alchemizing,
what Alana was just talking about is like, she sat, instead of like, let me go do a practice. What should I do? Should I answer these journal questions? Should I do this meditation? She just sat on the couch and felt it. That's what she did. And instead of like being stuck in it for several more hours, it shifted and it was gone within 30 seconds. Right. So that's the alchemy of alchemizing emotion. That's what I mean. And so, but now I'm like sitting in all this bliss and all this dreaminess, and the fucking oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins are rushing through my body constantly. And I'm in love again. Right. And so I got so committed to the isness and equanimity like never before. I'm like, okay, now I've got to alchemize these emotions too, because they're going to change too. Everything is shifting in this particular emotional realm. But then there's this unshifting realm that's just always there. I don't know. What words of wisdom do you have, Alana, around that? Because you've been through it. I mean, you've been through it too, Leah.
It is, yeah. And it teaches you to be in the moment, right? Like it really allows you to be in the moment and that you can see the beauty in all of it. In the stuff that feels amazing, right? Being in that blissed out state is just amazing, right? And you transmute those emotions as well, right? And you can see the incredible beauty in being in that deep despair, in that deep heartache, and really be in it. And by going through this, no doubt you are much more connected to you as a person, right? You've said that. No doubt you are showing up at a totally different level in your business and in supporting your clients. Like all of these things, it's an entire up level of your being. It's not just, oh, well, I made it to the other side and now I can be in love again, right? No, there's huge, I mean, it really is that chrysalis, right? That period where you come out as a completely different being, a completely different awareness of you, of the world, of how you flow in the world, of oneness. I mean, that feeling of oneness and that feeling of complete support beyond just our physical realm. And so, I mean, again, I love that you shared that too, because I think it's really important. I think a lot of people think, when they're going through, well, I can't do this. You guys know how to do this. You have it all figured out. And it's like, no, I mean, every single time you go through it, it'll rock your world. Right. I regularly get my world
That's the
rocked.
point of it.
Yeah. Like it's not that we have it figured out. It's just that there's a certain process that you can go through that is very similar and not even having any structure to it, but just going inward and being in that space and following that intuition is really that structure.
Well, it seems like it's like weaving back and forth. It's like there's these moments of deep separation, right? And it's like outside is like the reality of separation, where a connection is changing or ending or taking a new form. But then sometimes it makes us feel separate from ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like, who am I now? And why is this happening? And am I lovable? And like all those sort of separate experiences. And then you start to find your essence again, and then there's windows start to open and you have a really beautiful, deep conversation with a treasured friend you haven't spoken to in 15 years. Or, you get something like, I don't know if you've seen the Stutz documentary, Jonah Hill's Therapist.
So
it was a Netflix thing. And I mean, I watched it twice. I took notes and this might sound depressing to some people, but it opened doors for me. And he said, there are 3 things you can rely on in life: uncertainty, work, and pain. Mm-hmm. And it's our ability to increase our bandwidth and our acceptance of those things. And I think the hardest thing for people to accept is uncertainty. Mm-hmm. But the more we can become comfortable, like the challenge is, can you stay in your essence despite uncertainty? Can you stay connected to yourself and to source and choose not to separate yourself? Because I think that's all depression is anyways. I think it's just separation. We feel separate from God and everything else.
From essence,
and so like if we can remember when we're feeling pain, man, what a test. Here's some pain and physical pain in particular that you can't escape from. And can you stay connected instead of separating yourself? I mean, there's so many, I think, really interesting spiritual values just taking a look at. And then there's work, because you're going to have to work to build your tolerance to go, okay, what's going to be certain is pain and work and uncertainty. But I think there's a lot of hope in that, because I feel like what it points us to is building our strength and our ability to become more and more okay with that, more and more at peace with that, more and more accepting of that. Yeah. I don't know. It's a trippy thing to consider, considering that they're not the most positive things to put your attention on. And I think that kind of circles back to another thought, because as I'm watching you, Alana, there is magic in where you're putting your attention. Mm-hmm. So what I just described is kind of like tolerating some suffering and getting good at it. But when I hear you talk, it's like you're putting your attention on magic.
Yeah.
You're putting your attention on magic moments that are happening that you can capitalize on and nourish yourself with. Yeah. Maybe that's just bringing your face up into the sunlight and feeling the heat, like there's something there that I think you're connected to.
But it's the same thing. It's getting comfortable. We're not taught the tools as kids of how to handle uncertainty, pain, and work, right? Like none of those things are positive as a child. And so that's why we think of them as adults as these negative things that we want to avoid at all costs. But all three of those things equate to growth, equate to change, equate to doing something beyond what you're doing right now. Exactly. And so when you can get comfortable with it and recognize that it's not a bad thing, it's just a thing, right?
Yeah. Pain can lead to a lot of pleasure.
Yes. Right?
Just ask the kink world. I mean, they've been getting off on it for years.
Right? So I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just that we don't have the tools. And so when we don't have the tools, we're like, okay, where can I hide? Like, I don't want to do this because I don't know how to do this. Right. And so when you, especially if you're in this phase right now and you're spinning around in circles and you feel like you're stuck in that, because there are people that get stuck in those emotions for a long, long time, doing exactly what we were talking about, right? Like, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. Well, they're still dealing with it. It's not that it's not there, right? It's just that they're not consciously diving into it. And so it's recirculating and recirculating and recirculating. So really, when you can get comfortable and learn those tools and have that support when you're going through it, if this is something new for you and you don't know how to do this and you're like, what are you talking about? All three of you crazy ladies, right? Like, if you don't know how to do this, then this is where you need support. Like, this is a really good time to invest in yourself, because you will learn these tools and you will have plenty of opportunity to practice these tools so that you can get really comfortable with this, so that as you go forward, because as you said, we will experience work, we will experience pain, we will experience uncertainty. And if you can be in that and dive into it rather than try to run away from it, you are like nonstop growth. Like you are, and I don't want to say nonstop growth, because there is a period of like, of reflecting and being resting in your new baseline. Right. But you are able to continually move forward and experience life, do life. Like, you get to live. That's how you get to live, is learning how to do that. And so, do it, invest, find somebody that you resonate with, that can support you in this process, whatever it is that you're going through, right? Like, maybe it's not a breakup for you right now. Whatever it is, if you're feeling stuck, invest, figure out these tools, what works for you, become a master at it, and then boom, like, life is a playground. It truly becomes a playground because you're not hiding from these things anymore.
I think even just kind of going through this in partnership and, being with your partner, and you're not going to always be on the same timeline regarding your growth spurts, but what if you had supportive tools to help your partner when they're going through that sort of the next role, the next crisis that opens them up to their next greatness,
the next
how can
expansion,
we stay
contraction.
Or if we're going through separate things together, I mean, it kind of opens up a whole nother, we'll have to do another hour where we talk about couples doing this work. But how can people work with you, Alana?
Well, there's three different ways right now. I do work in a group healing program. So it's just a weekly healing. And then for people that are really ready to learn these tools for themselves, then there's a separate program for that. And then I also do work with one-on-one with people that are really wanting that focus. I love the combination that comes with group work as well, because when we're in group work, and I know you can both attest to this if working in this space, is that you're able to heal at like a crazy rate, because you're healing things that you weren't even aware of, right? You're like, oh, right, I have that too. I would never have thought to bring that up right now, but yeah. Right. So the one-on-one comes with the group work as well. And we go deep, but we also focus on the fact that we're creating growth, and I call it the playground. So
the playground.
Nice.
And you have a free gift for our audience?
I do. So it is a free live group healing where we get to go deep.
The playground.
We get to go deep into the playground and heal all of those things. Nothing's off limits. It's whatever's coming up in that session.
So you don't have to be going through a breakup.
No.
Are there any prerequisites? Like,
there's no prerequisites.
You can just come. Even if you're doing great, just come, right?
It's seriously, because even there, you can then start moving forward. You're like, okay, I'm doing amazing. what's next? Like,
Yeah.
what's next? How can I create more amazingness in my life? Right. And that's really what it becomes. You start at like, okay, I need to heal the stuff that's going on here right now. Right. And then once you're like, oh, actually, I feel really good. Okay, now where am I going? What's going to grow from this? Right. So yeah, there's no prerequisites. As I said, it's what brings you in the door, right?
How long
the
is
work
it?
is the same. Usually it's around 2 hours. Sometimes it runs
Okay.
a bit over, but
So
yeah.
2 hours and some change, maybe?
Yeah. It's a deep dive.
And if people can't attend live, is there a replay?
There is a replay as well. So it
Great.
will be made available to anyone that can't make it live.
Great.
Yeah,
So
Such a great gift. Such a great
yeah, we're going to have
offering.
all the information for you. Just look below or look at the show notes, and you'll know the steps you must take in order to be a part of this live event or to tune into the replay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's such a generous offering. I'm totally well, my curiosity is piqued. Like I want to see what I want to feel the healing energy of
Alana's
what
an
kind of
incredible
opens
healer.
in people.
Yeah.
And
I'm
what
sure
will happen.
sitting with you in one of those sessions for 2 hours would bring breakthroughs for anyone at any phase in their journey.
It's really, and it's why I do it, because I want people to be able to experience what is possible. There's people that heal things that are like, I've had this for 10 years and now I don't have it anymore. And, so it really is possible. And it comes down to the energy underneath it. So even physical stuff, a lot of people heal physical stuff in this. So yeah, come with all your baggage.
Play at the playground.
Yeah,
we will play.
All right,
thank you
Alana,
so much
thank
for
you so
being here
much.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you both. I had such a great time. You guys are amazing. I just love you.
Thanks for bringing so much goodness.
Much
All right,
love.
y'all. We'll catch you on the flip side. Love, love, love.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
We're gonna dish it up. We're gonna dish it up, dish it up.
I love Alana. She's so great.
Yeah.
She just feels like one of our girlfriends. I think we should go down to Mexico and hang out with her.
Yeah. I'm totally in. I felt such a connection to her right off the get-go with my interview with her when she was doing her summit, and was like, yeah, this is a super soul.
Yeah. She's just super wise. She's got that deep embodied knowledge. She has been through it herself. She walks her talk. You can really feel that in her presence and her delivery, and it's just coming from a very authentic place and
In a really curious place too.
yeah,
Like,
totally.
I really feel like there was no judgment in the pushback regarding, there's still something in the way. If you don't have what you desire,
Mhm.
there's this space. What's in the way between you and the fulfillment of that desire? What's the story that creates the obstacle in front of you?
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be a harrowing, horrible experience. Like, it's just being curious and just, taking a look at the unconscious belief systems that we don't even know we're running. But if we don't sometimes it just takes somebody asking the next question that opens up so many doors, that changes your perception of everything. What do you feel like, going through your last breakup and process, what changed in your perception as you did the work? Did you have to rewrite any stories or belief systems, any tapes that you had to?
I mean, I think what came up for me was like this really deep-seated stuff from the collective of there's this song that kept playing in my head, and it goes like this. Am I not pretty enough? Is my heart too broken? Do I cry too much? Am I too outspoken? So it's like, it's that stuff that we're like, am I too this? Am I not enough that? Am I da 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 ba da ba da ba da? And like, I didn't think I had any of that shit. I thought I was over, above, and beyond, super in my sovereignty, super in my confidence, But then to get so rocked and so shattered, it all just came up for review. It all just came up to the surface, and it was like, it wasn't this question of like, am I not good enough? It was even deeper than that. It was like that. Those words seem like a high, like a level that wasn't true for me. It was, of course, I know I'm good enough, but there was something even deeper that I can't even really put words
Put
to.
names,
But
yeah.
can you see the emotion that comes with it? Because it's like, why? Why are we living in a society? Why are we living in a world where we all have that, like deep,
Well,
deep, deep, deep down,
do you
even
think
if
it
we
like
think
it
we
just
don't?
comes down to like uncertainty? I mean, when I think about some
Yeah.
people that are kind of reaching into that place, it's like, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if that doesn't happen? Or what if this, thing doesn't happen? This thing that I feel like should happen.
Yeah, like that I really think I want.
Isn't it supposed to happen?
Yeah. Am I going to be one of those people who doesn't find their, life partner in life?
Right. Yeah. I think
And there's a
I-
level of acceptance around that. And
Yeah.
that's the surrender. And that's the surrender that gives way. That's the fucking ring of fire right there in
Yeah.
birth. Like you have to surrender into it. You can't leave. You can't go home. You can't distract. You got to be with that ring of fire to
Yeah.
get to the other side.
I think every time I've been single, and I've been single a lot, I have not been one of these, what do they call it? Serial monogamous. Yeah. No, I was not the person who was always going in and
Let
out
me
of
get
relationships.
into the next relationship.
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of alone life. And and that was often one of the things that would percolate, like, well, how are you going to be if this doesn't come to be?
Right.
How are you going to surrender to that? How are you going to receive that with grace? How are you going to unplug from the longing? Are you supposed to unplug from the longing? And then if you unplug from the longing, what does that mean? Does it mean you cut off all attraction and it's never,
Right.
I mean, how you got to strategize this?
Yeah.
Like to care or not to care, be all in or be all out,
Right.
you just kind of, I remember all those things. And even in partnership, even in marriage, I mean, Matt has said on more than one occasion, sometimes it just feels like you checked off boxes. Okay, good. That got that one done. Okay, good. Got that one done. What's next? And I don't want to be a box that gets checked. And it's kind of a profound thing to sit with because the one who checked the box isn't experiencing it that way.
Right.
But the reflection of that is like,
Right.
well, let me get curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Curiosity is clutch to any part of the process, any part of the journey that you're on, whether you're in the, honeymoon phase with somebody or I think what it is we want so badly to know. We want to have certainty.
Yeah.
We're creatures of habit. Like we do well with routine. Our health is better. We sleep better if we have a routine, and there's safety and security within routine. Right now we're in the year of the water rabbit, and the water rabbit wants safety and security. So everyone collectively worldwide really wants this, like, where's my burrow? I'm going to go home to my little cozy burrow and have some tea, There's this desire for stability right now. And we're living in a very unstable world where everything is shifted and we don't know where we stand. And I think that's causing a lot of deep fear collectively and inside of individuals to really be either lurking in the shadows and ruling your life unconsciously or coming up to the surface for some serious look at me, some serious review.
Yeah. So thanks, Alana, for bringing to the table, being in deeper inquiry with ourselves and, unpacking the things that have us feeling less than or not good enough or too much or, that kind of just rock us, and to just keep trusting, keep moving towards the fact that it's temporary. Whatever pain you're in, you can find yourself in a different place, but you got to be where you're at right now. We don't get to skip a lot of steps. That just kind of creates a lot more distraction. So if you can just be with yourself and the sensations and breathe and then it'll be time to make a sandwich, or it'll be time to take a poop, or it'll be time to go on a walk, or it'll be time to answer the phone. These moments of discomfort, they're there until you have to do something else.
Yeah.
Until it's time to go get the mail, know?
And really being with those emotions and really
Mhm.
going into them, I do think really speeds up the process quite a lot rather than
Yeah.
distracting, looking at social media or looking for some kind of dopamine hit outside of yourself, whether it's dating somebody that you're like, "Mm, not really into them, but they like me. So I'm going to, receive some attention from them. I think it's your time and your energy, your chi is better well spent actually going into it and doing a lot of ritual ceremony, song. That shit gets me through for sure.
Yeah, because she really brought that. I mean, I really sat with that just observing her. Is it's not yes, go into it, feel everything you're there to feel, like metabolize it, finish chewing it up. It's like let's get this through the system so it doesn't have to live there and become concrete in your chakras.
Mhm.
Um, but don't forget to find the magic in every day.
Yeah.
Look for the magic moments. Look for where you can be uplifted. Where you put your attention matters. And sometimes your attention needs to be on finishing metabolizing sadness or anger or frustration or uncertainty. But then what's next is what's beautiful in your world? What's going right in your world? How can you be intentional with experiencing love in your life? Love for self, love for nature, love for your pets, love for your job and your friends. I mean, there's love all around us. And that's nutrients. I mean, that's a thing to nourish you when you feel like you're just living on empty calories of emotions.
On that
Anyways,
note.
on that note, we don't really have any answers, just a lot of good ideas.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. Shoot
Yeah.
us an email.
Yeah. How did you get through your last breakup? We'd love to know. All right, y'all.
Much love.
Love, love, love.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.